Modifications for new housing. There are several design and construction requirements for new housing to conform to fair housing regulations. The 1988 Fair Housing Amendment Act requires that all multifamily dwellings be designed and constructed with certain accessibility-enhancing features, including a building entrance on an accessible route. Public and common use areas must be readily accessible to and usable by handicapped persons. All doors designed to allow passage into and within all premises must be sufficiently wide to accommodate persons who use wheelchairs. There must be an accessible route into and through the dwelling unit. Light switches, electrical outlets, thermostats, and other environmental controls must be placed at accessible locations. Reinforcements must be installed in bathrooms to allow for the later installation of grab bars and kitchens, and bathrooms must be designed to allow people in wheelchairs to maneuver about the space. Who is protected by fair housing laws? The Fair Housing Act identifies 7 classes protected by the law: race, color, national origin, religion, sex, familial status, and disability. State and local laws often extend these protected classes to include such characteristics as sexual preference, age, and even student status. Check with your local fair housing or human rights advocacy organization to find out what classes are locally protected in your area. Some notes on the protected classes. Sexual discrimination includes sexual harassment. Sexual harassment is defined as deliberate or repeated unsolicited verbal comments, gestures, or physical contact that creates an offensive environment, or when sexual favors are sought in return for housing. With regard to familial status, families are defined as at least one child under the age of 18, living with at least one parent or appointed guardian. It also includes pregnant women and those in the adoption process. The Fair Housing Act defines handicap, or disability, as 1. A physical or mental impairment which substantially limits one or more of such person's major life activities. 2. A record of having such an impairment. Or 3. Being regarded as having such an impairment. But such term does not include current, illegal use of, or addiction to a controlled substance. What does the Fair Housing Act protect against? The Fair Housing Act states a number of illegal practices, including 36 RN 4A, refusals to sell or rent. To refuse to sell or rent after the making of a bona fide offer, or to refuse to negotiate for the sale or rental of, or otherwise make unavailable or deny a dwelling to any person because of membership in a protected class. 36 R 4B, discrimination in terms, conditions, or privileges of sale. To discriminate against any person in the terms, conditions, or privileges of sale or rental of a dwelling, or in the provision of services or facilities in connection therewith, because of membership in a protected class. This type of discrimination is more subtle than outright refusal to rent or sell. For instance, an apartment manager might require a higher security deposit from families with children than those without, or demand an extraordinarily high application fee from minority applicants. Such different treatment is every bit as illegal as a more blatant, outright refusal to rent or sell. 3604C, advertising, to make, print, or publish, or cause to be made, printed, or published any notice, statement, or advertisement with respect to the sale or rental of a dwelling that indicates any preference, limitation, or discrimination based on membership in a protected class. 3604D, denying availability. To represent to any person because of my membership in a protected class. That any dwelling is not available for inspection, sale, or rental when such dwelling is in fact so available. A real estate agent, apartment manager, etc., may not falsely claim a lack of available properties or units to prospective tenants based on their membership in a protected class. 3604E, blockbusting and steering. For profit, to induce or attempt to induce any person to sell or rent any dwelling by representations regarding the entry or prospective entry into the neighborhood of a person or persons of a particular protected class. Blockbusting is an effort to induce panic in a neighborhood by telling white homeowners that other whites are leaving the area and that minorities are moving in, with the goal of getting white homeowners to sell their homes at unusually low prices. Steering is a practice whereby a real estate agent makes a practice of showing white clients' homes in predominantly white neighborhoods and minority clients' homes in predominantly non-white neighborhoods. 3604F. Failure to make reasonable accommodation. Refusal to make reasonable modifications to the premises of a dwelling or the rules, policies, practices, or services of a dwelling, if such modifications are necessary to afford a person with a disability equal opportunity to use and enjoy the dwelling. What constitutes a reasonable accommodation is an involved issue covered in detail in the Fair Housing and Disability FAQ. 3605. Lending discrimination and redlining. Discrimination in making loans for the purpose of real estate transactions are illegal. Real estate transactions include purchasing, constructing, improving, repairing, or maintaining a dwelling. Redlining is a term derived from the practice of loan officers who would evaluate home mortgage applications by relying on a residential map where integrated and minority neighborhoods were marked off in red as poor risk areas. It is the practice of denying loan applications based on the neighborhood of the home in question. For more information on redlining, please read Sarah Pratt's The History of Insurance Redlining. Other prohibited practices. While the above-mentioned practices are specifically prohibited by the Fair Housing Act, it is important to note that the broad language of Section 3604A, or otherwise make unavailable or deny a dwelling to any person because of membership in a protected class, provides consumers with blanket implied protection against all other discriminatory practices. An excellent example is insurance discrimination. While insurance discrimination is not specifically covered in the Act, redlining by insurers is a significant barrier to equal opportunity in housing. Many lawsuits have been filed against insurance agencies based on the provisions of the Act. Discriminatory versus creditworthy. It's important to note the difference between discriminatory and creditworthy here. While banks and lenders can't deny you a loan based on your race, gender, or disability, they can deny you for other reasons. Financial institutions have a legal and moral responsibility to deny loans to individuals who are not creditworthy and cannot repay the debt. This may at times seem discriminatory, but approving loans for people without the means to repay them created the foundation for the Great Recession. Naturally, lenders, as well as the institutions that regulate them, want to discourage similar events from happening in the future. Banks are free to set their own lending standards based on economic characteristics such as credit score, debt levels, and employment income. The Fair Housing Act also allows lenders to consider things like the property's condition, local home values, neighborhood amenities, and their own need for a balanced loan portfolio when evaluating an applicant. Preventing redlining. The Home Mortgage Disclosure Act was created in 1975 to help stave off redlining and other discriminatory lending practices. The law requires lenders to track and regularly report loan-level data to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. This allows the CFPB and Department of Justice to regularly evaluate lending practices and ensure borrowers are being treated fairly, equitably, and in line with fair housing practices. For example, the CFPB may use HMDA data to see how loan pricing and interest rates compare across different ethnic groups with similar credit scores. It may also look at the underwriting standards those groups are held to,